Hello, and welcome to another 40k report for the channel. This time I'm debuting a new army, Craftworlds.
Please try and control yourself.
If you've seen any of my older Harlequin reps, you'll know I've had a decent Craftworld contingent for a long time, but I've finally painted up enough to use on their own. I'm facing off against World Eaters for the first time. My last few reports have all been 5-minute reps, but I'll spend a bit longer on this one, seeing as it's my first Craftworld report. Anyway, let's take a look at the rosters. Yep, my Eldar army is entirely grayscale, with snow-covered black glass on the bases. It's a simple idea which I don't think I've seen done before with any army, let alone one generally known for bright colors.
That's weird, I'm different.
So we're playing conversion, and for secondaries I choose Bring It Down, Engage, and Knackman Data, while World Eaters take Stranglehold, Assassinate, and the Long War. Here's the board after deployment and pre-game shenanigans, including Apoplectic Frenzy and Phantasm. We're using a ton of obscuring terrain, and we decide to run the ground floors as fully line-of-sight blocking, so infantry can get right in the buildings without being shot to shit. A better shot of my whole deployment zone. I forward deploy one unit of Rangers up here, and Kurandras and the Scorpions forward deploy to threaten the enemy right away. In Deep Strike, I just have my 5 Howling Banshees. And a closer look at the World Eater's quarter. Most of his vehicles are well hidden. In Deep Strike, he places his Red Butcher Terminators. So I get the first turn, which is why my Scorpions were phantasmed so aggressively. Here's the board after movement. My 2 Fire Prisms move across as they can both draw an angle on the flank of the Land Raider. My Rangers in the top left R&D. I keep a lot of my army back behind obscuring terrain in my quarter, including the Viper, Swooping Hawks, and my Spellcasters. Here you can see the center of the board better. My 2 chunky boys storm onto the central objective, and the Shining Spears move up behind them. Finally, a better look at my Scorpions and Kurandras, who've moved up to cause trouble over here.
We're gonna make it happen one way or the other, and that I guarantee.
In Psychic, my main spellcasters are staying well back at the moment so do nothing, and I just kill one Warp Talon with a smite from the Hemlock. In Shooting, the Hemlock and Scorpions between them do 6 wounds to the Defiler, leaving it on 8. Both Fire Prisms combined do 11 wounds to the Land Raider too, which is about average I reckon. Charge time.
Does anyone have a charger?
2 easy charges over here, with the help of 2 strands of fate dice. Whilst the charges were easy to make, the decision wasn't. I really want to take out the Warp Talons and the Defiler, but decide an interrupt would be too costly, and opt to keep the Scorpions safe by gumming up the Rhino, whilst Kurandras takes on the Defiler. Unfortunately, Kurandras bit off more than he can chew, and only does 4 wounds, taking 3 in return. The Scorpions do nothing, but their aim was just to be a nuisance anyway. Overall I'm not displeased with the situation over here, as it stalls this whole section for the next turn. In World Eater's turn 1, the Mauler Fiend comes out of hiding and bounds towards the center. Looks like we're in for an epic brawl very shortly.
Let's have a fucking bare knuckle then!
One Rhino hurtles all the way around the flank of this building, and out of shot the Warp Talons boost over towards my Hemlock in the bottom right corner. There's no shooting to speak of, as the Land Raider completely whiffs against the Fire Prisms, so it's straight onto combat. The Mauler Fiend makes its charge and he pops the reroll strat on it. He rolls brutally well, and ends up doing 10 wounds to the Avatar, leaving him on 4.
He did what?
The Avatar's retaliation does exactly enough wounds to slay the Fiend outright, however.
Now which one of you cowards shit in my pants?
Over here, Khorne and a unit of Berserkers manage to get in. I try and interrupt with Kurandras, hoping to take out Khorne, but I just whiff, only doing a couple of wounds, and then all my guys get mulched.
Fucking everything can just fuck right off.
The Warp Talons charge the Hemlock and buff themselves up with +1 to wound, but due to a cheeky lightning-fast reactions they only do 6 wounds all told. At the end of the phase, I pop the Phoenix Reborn, and Khorne comes back to life, with 1 wound.
Say, let's bring him back to life by using
space magic.
My turn 2. The Fire Prisms move so they have options versus the Land Raider, Empty Rhino, and the Warp Talons just out of shot in the bottom right corner. The Hemlock flies all the way up the right flank. I still don't see any reason to bring my spellcasters out to play yet. The Shining Spears and Swooping Hawks prepare to pop the Rhino and hopefully muller the angry boys inside it. And the Wraithlord stands firm in the center, as the Avatar charges forwards towards the enemy quarter. Finally, what can Khorne do? Well, I'm anticipating having to charge a unit of Berserkers with my Shining Spears this turn. In that case, it seems pointless to charge Khorne into a unit, as that gives the World Eaters an opportunity to interrupt and kill whichever one of my units goes second. Therefore I decide a better use for him is advancing down into the bottom right to score me an extra point for engage on all fronts, for having all 4 quarters.
My brother, come on man, what are you talking about?
Neither of us caught this at the time, but of course under the new rules he wouldn't be able to score it, being a single infantry model. I've corrected my score accordingly. It seems a better use for him would have been charging something and potentially draining 2 CP from my opponent.
Listen, I'm ashamed of myself.
One more correction. It seems during my movement phase I changed my mind and sent my Farseer up near the Shining Spears. He just does a few mortal wounds to the Rhino, and then gets quickened back to safety by the Warlock. In shooting, the Avatar casually flicks his sword towards the same Rhino, and accidentally deletes it. The Berserkers disembark into the central ruin. One of the Fire Prisms finishes off the Land Raider, and the other one targets the Warp Talons with dispersed shots. But it doesn't even manage to kill a single one of them.
Oh, how pathetic.
Just 2 combats, then, both predictable. The Shining Spears charge and kill the Berserkers who were on the other side of the wall, and the Avatar charges and easily destroys this empty Rhino. I'm not gonna do score sheets, but I'll comment a bit on the scores as we go. This was a great turn for me, with 14 for primaries this turn and a ton of points for Bring It Down so far. My total is around 30 or so points so far. In World Eater's turn 2, he gets 6 for primaries in total. He sends a squad of Berserkers and the Halberd out to take out the Shining Spears. One squad of Berserkers sprints forwards and hides in the ruins here. Khorne squares up to Khorne, and the Warp Talons hang back for now. He then brings his Termies down from deep strike, near one of the Fire Prisms.
Oh fucking Jesus, oh no.
In shooting, he tries to take out the Hemlock with his plasmas and melt over here, but it survives with 2 wounds. The Terminators then dump everything they have into the distant Swooping Hawks, but thanks to their -1 to hit, 5 up invo, and 5 up feel no pain, they survive completely unharmed. The Termies do then make their charge against the Fire Prism, and easily destroy it.
Holy God, what are you showing me?
In the center, the Shining Spears obviously get completely butchered to a man, and the Berserkers consolidate onto the central objective. On the left flank, Khorne destroys Khorne easily. It was a bad decision to resurrect him in hindsight, as even if he had scored me the extra engage point, he just gave up another 3 assassinate points. Fuck's sake. One last epic combat. The Chaos Lord charges my Avatar, and with Gorefather's mortal wounds he easily murders him. The Chaos Lord would obviously feel rather proud of himself.
And I just can't let that happen.
I spend my last 2 CP, and with a mighty roar the Avatar manages one last swing of the Wailing Doom, decapitating the Chaos Lord in retaliation. So in terms of points, World Eaters are trailing behind a bit at the moment, due to a faltering start on primaries. They're on about 18, to my 30. My turn 3. 10 for primaries. I scramble what I can to defend my quarter against the rampaging Termies. The Hemlock flies across to target the Halberd, which is his last remaining vehicle. My Howling Banshees come down in the far right corner. As much as I'd like them to muller Khorne with a Fate Dice charge, I relegate them to Nachman data duties, and they successfully retrieve the data, bringing my total up to 8 points for that secondary. As well as this, they get me that sweet 3rd pip for engage. In shooting, the Hemlock easily destroys the Halberd, maxing out my available Bring It Down points, which is 12. Combined Psychic and Shooting kills 3 of the 5 Termies, and then the Wraithlord charges in, but despite using 3 fate dice he still only manages to kill one of the termies. At least he takes no damage in return, though, thanks again to fate dice. In their turn 3, World Eaters push forward with the Warp Talons, but have 3 squads of Berserkers left too, who all hunker down on these 3 objectives. Just out of shot in the
bottom right corner,
Khorne heads for the Banshees. In shooting, the Hemlock finally goes down to bolter and plasma fire, as it can't be obscured from the nearby Berserkers. In combat, Khorne easily slaughters the Banshees. I had a brief glimmer of hope as the Exarch survived his initial attacks, but then he fought again and mullered her. Ah well, they scored me 5 points anyway. What I wasn't expecting, however, was for the Warp Talons to charge in and wipe the Wraith Lord out in one go. They get veterans of the Long War and possibly some other sort of buff, and they reroll wounds anyway with their lightning claws, so despite his toughness 8, the big bastard just crumbles beneath the weight of attacks. In terms of points, World Eaters have started to do a lot better, and are now on about 38 or so, but I still lead at the moment, on just over 50 I believe. Here's my turn 4 movement. I'm still able to score an easy engage on all fronts. In fact, with a redeploy and shooting from the swooping hawks, I'll be able to score another 3 points for it. As we had run horrifically short on time, we tried to figure out the rest of the game as best as we could. It was made easier by the fact that we're now essentially at a stalemate. With the volume of fire and mortal wounds I still have left, I can deal with the Warp Talons and 1 remaining termie. World Eaters are sitting pretty on Stranglehold and 14 primary points each turn. At the same time, if they want to come out of hiding and try and alter my own primary points, they'll have to leave their objectives and expose their Berserkers, and will risk giving up a ton of points themselves. Therefore I'm still able to gather 10 primary points in turn 5. In this way, we both end up maxing out primaries by the end of the game. It comes down to secondaries, then. Let's take a look at the final score sheet. The game ends with Craftworlds scraping a victory, 85 points to 79. World Eaters fell slightly behind on secondaries, specifically the Long War, which only netted them 3 points. With decent enough scores from all 3 of my secondaries, it was just about enough. It was great fun trying out the new Craftworlds, which is in fact the second time I've used the Codex now. It seems the new Codex has a great combination of speed, combat, firepower, and resiliency, without pushing any of those elements over the top. Except for Hail of Doom nonsense of course. As Craftworlds played differently to my other armies, I'm sure I did tons of stuff stupidly, but I'm looking forward to getting more painted up and trying out various units and builds. As for World Eaters, I feel like my opponent played amazingly well with a codex that desperately needs updating, and with a frickin' Land Raider. I for one love World Eaters in the lore, and if the new models are decent I'll be sorely tempted.
Arrest me.
Well, that'll do it for another report. If you're new here, you may notice that my last 5 reports have all been so-called 5-minute ones, with the main meat of the report being limited to 5 minutes, so the total video length is only around 7 or 8 minutes. I intend to go back to that style for the next report, unless I do any Tempest of War, which will probably take longer to narrate. Anyway, thanks to my opponent, thanks for watching, and please like, comment, subscribe, and all that shiz.
Please leave this room.